Anderson?
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sarah Anderson, and I spent 4 years as part of the Lundberg Legion at the state capitol. Worked for Kevin Lundberg when he was a representative there for 4 years. So my question for you is, since I know there are parents here as well as college students, will you explain briefly how they can become a legislative aide or volunteer, and maybe a very brief bit about what they would do for you in that process?
Go ahead, Joe.
Good question. I like people who are passionate. I've sometimes hired people who may only have 5 of the 10 job responsibilities for a job, but their heart, their attitude makes up the other 5. And someone who just wants it and says, here's my skills, here's my background. They may have volunteered on a campaign, they may be a constituent, they may have approached me, but they just show an earnestness in trying to serve people and wanting to work through bureaucracy or help constituents. That heart, that spirit is one of the most important things I look for. And someone who can work some flexible hours would be a big second.
I'll just add to that. There are 2 positions that usually help a legislator in their office. One is a paid aide, the other is an intern who receives academic credit. There are multiple paths to either of those 2 positions. The aides, you can either contact the legislator directly, and then they can tell their House staff or their Senate staff, I'm going to hire so-and-so. And when I say contact directly, it's as simple as send an email, introduce yourself. Usually helps if you've got a mutual acquaintance, I was recommended by so-and-so, include a resume, and just pursue the contact, and you can become an aide that way. Another way you can become an aide is to apply to the House Republican staff or Democratic staff or Senate Republican staff or Senate Democratic staff, and they usually have someone kind of accumulating the applications and making recommendations and interviewing and then placing aides with legislators. The aide position is paid. It usually involves more responsibility, but because you're paid and it's not in a specifically academic area, it often involves more grunt work too. The other legislators have a different feel about this sometimes, but I like to give my academic interns who are getting great credit and not getting paid usually more policy involved subject, and if it just involves going through mail and answering it, I don't like to have the interns do that because I kind of feel like I'm shorting them. They're there for an academic experience. The aide's getting paid. They can take the garbage out.
I'm going to keep us on schedule. We'll take one more question. All right, Mr. Arnold, I'm going to challenge you to ask it in less than 50 words.
Yeah, good luck.
All right.
I'm just following up with Shawn's question. Regarding more citizen participation, you get the count going? And showing up for hearings. Last session, there was quite a differential in how people were treated and also how those hearings are scheduled. A lot of times the calendar jumps around quite a bit, and how people are allowed to participate in these hearings. I'd like to get both of you, although you're in the minorities in your respective caucuses now, if you can help to influence, to make sure that when people do show up, they are actually treated respectfully and they are given an opportunity to provide some substantive input to bills for committees.
Thank you, Matt. Shawn, you want to start with that one?
Matt, I think that's a serious problem. A committee chair, which I was for several years in the House and have not been in the Senate, in the good old days when different party was in the majority. A committee chair has 2 jobs. One is to effectively and efficiently just administer the meeting and direct traffic, but I think the other one is to treat citizens fairly irrespective of their position on the issue. And that has been abused too much in recent years. There are just reports of committee chairs cutting off witnesses they disagree with, berating them, giving them a hard time. That's just a flagrant abuse. And that I can recall, I never behaved that way as a committee chair in the House. And if I did, then I hope karma, well, I guess I've been getting karma for 6 years. But it's not always possible to give everyone their say. A contentious issue, hundreds of witnesses, you just can't let everyone go on and on and on, but you should at least limit testimony and direct traffic fairly. Good chairs do, bad chairs don't.
Joe?
Yeah, first I would say, if anyone's ever treated you poorly, then I apologize on behalf of myself and the whole state legislature. Because I agree with Shawn that everyone should have their day in the sun to testify. It's why truly we're there sometimes really late. The only problem is that sometimes we'll have 200 witnesses like we did on the medical marijuana bill. I happened to serve on the Judiciary Committee at the last session, and we had 2 or 3 evenings to midnight. And it's tough if everyone gets a half hour. I mean, we'd be there all night long. So at that case, or in that instance, we limited it to 3 minutes apiece. I'm not sure people were very happy with that because they would wait sometimes 4 hours for 3 minutes. So that's a logistical issue. I've only seen one or two instances where someone got cut off, I think everyone should have a chance to speak as long as they want, if there's not 200 people waiting.
Thank you. I'll give each y'all a couple minutes if you want to wrap it up. Joe, you can start from that.
Well, first of all, again, thank you for being here and indulging my cold. The first time I walked into the state capitol on the House floor, the floor of representatives, there's gentlemen in green coats called the Sergeant of Arms. It was when I was sworn in, and they said, "Welcome, Representative Miklosi." And I had my mom and dad with me, and my wife, and I was sworn in. And I've worked in a lot of jobs. I've started my own company. I've worked in the nonprofit sector. I lived in D.C. for 10 years and worked in both politics and the software sector. This is the most humbling, challenging job I've ever had. And it's short term. At the most, it can be 8 years. And I kind of like that because you've got a short amount of time to make an impact, to listen to people, and make a difference. Shawn and I may disagree on half the issues, but one thing I can speak passionately about, having served with him on an audit committee, is we care about the people of Colorado and want the state to be the most prosperous. Whether it's balancing the budget, creating jobs, quality schools, better health care, on a whole gamut of issues. It's been an honor to be here today. I love your thoughtful questions, and I'll stick around if you have any more.
Thank you. Shawn?
Thank you, David. Let me finish sort of where we started, which is to say I'm excited that people are thinking more about how to get involved in influencing their government. Typically, when you think about politics, again, you think about campaigns and elections, I think we need to continue that influence further on. One insight that I neglected to mention early on is that there are different types of legislators, and to oversimplify, I'll put up two caricatures. There is the weather vane legislator who thinks their highest and best function is to represent public opinion in their district to the decimal point. There is the ideologue legislator who thinks their highest and best function is to vote their philosophical commitments. I'm more of an ideologue. There are others that are more weather vanes, and neither one is an entirely, no one's a cardboard person. There's a whole lot of influence. But when you approach a legislator, it helps to know whether there's someone that has a strong libertarian, conservative, liberal bent, and you should kind of appeal to their heartstrings, or whether there's someone that's all about representing the Chamber of Commerce, or all about counting postcards, or all about if you tell them that you're from an organization that represents 500 members, that means something to them. Different lawmakers approach it from different perspectives, and as you get more involved, you'll kind of feel your way to know what buttons to push with what lawmakers. That takes time. That takes commitment. Not everyone has it, so the final note is to again emphasize the importance of allying with others. The Gadsden Society, the only group I know of that's about liberty across the board, down there at the lobbying at the Capitol for liberty across the board. Gun rights groups or property rights groups or whatever it is, you might not be able to track everything yourself, but if you're supporting an organization that is professionally watching it, number one, your concerns will be represented. Number two, you'll be informed about what's going on at the Capitol so that you can jump when the occasion is important to you to jump. And I'm glad that we're all here today talking about a lot of jumping that needs to be done. Thanks for being with us.
And thank you all for coming. Most importantly, thank you all for caring about the process. Thank you to CCU, Keith Peterson of Hear Us Now, and most specifically to Senator Shawn Mitchell and to Representative Joe Miklosi for being here. Thank you very much.